Okay, good morning. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. So I guess SKA would have popped up quite frequently during this week's discussions, and some of you may be eager to know what's the latest status, and of course also what we are doing in India as part of our participation in the project. So that's what I'll talk about. So, so as we all know, this is the International Next Generation Project. And what is interesting is this graph here, which shows the sensitivity for SKA phase 1 and also phase 2 in comparison with some of the major existing facilities today. And as you can see that compared to anything that exists today, SKA phase 1 itself promises a significant improvement in the sensitivity. And there is the other metric, which is the rate of covering the sky for doing surveys, which is also very good for the SKA. And the phase 1, therefore, those much smaller than the final goal of SKA phase 2 is still capable of transformative science. And that is something that I don't need to tell this audience in terms of the range of science, but it is touted as a facility which has the broadest range of science amongst all science or astronomy facilities. And its location, as we all know, is in radio quiet regions in the western part of Australia and in South Africa, and with the headquarters at Jodrell Bank in the UK. And this is what the SKA mid location is. It's in the northern part of South Africa, is where the core of SKA mid will be. And in phase 1, 197 dishes, 15-meter diameter each, which incorporate or will incorporate the 64 dishes of meerkat and spread out from the core up to a distance of about 150 kilometers. And this is, of course, an artist's impression of the array, but I'll show you the first few dishes that have gone up now. And this is a radio quiet region protected by legislation. And so it ensures a fairly quiet and clean environment for the SKA mid. And SKA low in the western part of, on the edge of the Great Australian Desert. And this is now different design. It is dipole antennas. So 256 dipole antennas make a station. And there are 512 stations in the planning, spanning again about a 75-kilometer region from the core of the SKA low. And again, a place which is of low population density and protected by legislation for radio quietness. And of course, it has ASCAP and MWA as precursor facilities located in the same region. So this is the detailed array configuration for SKA mid. As you can see, there's a dense core and then the 3 spiral arms which go out. And similarly for SKA low, there's again a very dense core. And what you can't make out that clearly are the arms that are going out from the core. And again, just to make the point that this is a project that is now well into construction. So this is the kind of infrastructure that has already been built up even towards the end of last year at both the sites and locations. And the planning, the way the infrastructure is being rolled out, is to keep the possibility for the expansion to SKA phase 2 as and when that happens. And needless to say that many next generation technologies are involved in the SKO. I won't go into the details of those except to point out the main thing, which is of significant interest and probably the biggest challenge, that it is a massive data machine and handling the data is a challenge. So the data basically flowing from either the SKA low stations, where actually the dipoles would be combined to form different station beams. So you can think of each beam as coming from a small dish pointing in a given particular direction. And that data then flows live to the central signal processing system, which actually sits 800 kilometers away in Cape Town. And this then does the basic computations like getting the visibilities from correlating the beams from the individual stations, and as well as the time domain data products, which is got from beamforming by combining the beams from all the stations to form the main telescope beam. And then it goes to the science data processor, which will then do the initial task of imaging or doing the time domain processing, whether it is searching for pulsars or generating the data set for timing and looking for transients and so on. And similarly, there is a flow in the SKA mid, except this part where there is the beamforming that happens at the station level is not there. And so there are the signal, there's only one data stream, two polarizations, of course, from each antenna, which go through similar computing and imaging and time domain analysis. And the thing to note is the data rates, which are very large, and the computing required to do this. And mind you, anything on the left of this line is real time. So this is all to be achieved in real time. And so that makes it all the more challenging. And then the final data products are to be transported from the telescope sites to the SKA regional centers. And this would result in 700 petabytes per year of data being stored across the globe in the regional centers. And so this is what is being talked about, that different places, most likely at locations of member countries, there would be regional data centers, which would then allow the direct access to the user community from there. And so as I mentioned, that what we are currently building is phase one, which has the following specifications: frequency coverage from 50 megahertz to 14 gigahertz, with 50 to 300 being in SKA low, or rather 350 being in SKA low, and 300 megahertz to 14 gigahertz will be in SKA mid. And as I already indicated to you, the maximum baselines of that order. And the new things here are that during the design phase, the cost was 200 million euros, and the construction cost, as well as the cost of running the SKA organization up to 2030 during the construction phase is close to 2 billion euros. This, of course, is an international partnership with 12 countries which are already members. And so that's the map of the membership. These are the countries that are already members, and these are countries that are in the process of becoming members, of which France and Sweden are quite close to getting the approval to sign the treaty and join the SKO Council. And Korea is just initiating that. Japan is probably going to take a few more years before they get there. Right, and the timeline, which I've already sort of hinted to, the design completed in early 2020, construction phase launched from early 2022. Completion of construction is aimed at around 2028 to 29. Commissioning and early science should be possible from 2026, 27 onwards. And the aim is to have the facility fully operational by 2029, 2030. And so we can ask how well is it doing compared to that kind of timeline. So this is a graph which is probably already a few months old, but it just shows that how the progress has been over this 8 years of the construction phase. And so a good fraction of the contracts have been awarded, which total to and committed to 78% of the expected total contract value. And the physical progress is about 35% complete, a little bit behind what is planned. And the expenditure is roughly on track of what is planned. And so these are the graphs that show this progress with both the physical and the financial expenditures. And the blue line is the target. So it's a little bit behind. And so there have been some slippages. Partly COVID did some of that, and partly some of the costs turned out to be more than what was expected. Again, partly due to the wars and the tensions that happened globally. But nevertheless, there is stuff on the ground and data flowing now. So 4th July last year was when the first dish for SKA mid was lifted and put in place. And 12th September, we had the first fringes from 2 stations of SKA low. And later that year, there was the first demonstrated pulsar observation with the SKA low. And something that was much more interesting that happened just last month was the first image that was made with the SKA low using 4 stations and somewhat limited bandwidth, 7 hours of integration time, achieving 5 to 6 millijansky's noise. And this is the image which has a 70 arcsecond resolution covering 25 square degrees of field of view. So this is encouraging. It shows that all the basic things are working, but there's still a lot more to be done to get it working in a routine fashion. And of course, as you add more stations or as you add more dishes, things become more challenging. So we're still waiting for the first light results from SKA mid. Hopefully, it will be coming soon. And then the project is expected then to move forward more quickly. So now I'll turn to our participation in the SKA. So we've been part of the SKA since the early days. 2012 was when we first put forward a concept design for the telescope manager system for SKA. And when the SKA organization was set up, which was the previous entity that ran the project during the design phase, we became observer members in 2013 and regular members in 2015. And during this design phase, we participated in 3 different design work packages. And we were the lead country for the design of the telescope manager system, working with industry as partners and in a 7-country consortium during this time. And we were one of the first design consortia to finish the design work. And this was something that was well appreciated both by the SKO and in India. And then we participated in this prototyping phase. That was the 2-year gap between the actual end of design and the formal start of the construction. And we continued working on the telescope manager. And so we've been contributing to what is now called the Observatory Management and Control. It's a slightly broader scope than what the original telescope manager was. And so it's basically the entire end-to-end control system for the SKA, all the way from the time you submit the proposals to the time you can access your data. So it controls the entire flow through the observatory. The other area we have been actively involved in is the SKA low station processing system. So as I mentioned, at the station, you have to combine the signal from the dipoles to form beams in the sky, and that requires digital signal processing hardware. And some of that is going to be built in India, with Italy as the lead country for that. And now that we have become full members of the SKA, we are ready to launch in full flow into these activities, as well as take up additional activities. And so there is strong interest both from the science community as well as from the industry. And so the watershed moment came in December 2023, when the cabinet of the Government of India approved India to join the construction phase of the SKA project. And so that approval was to sign the treaty and become a full member. And it was also an approval for our funding request in total for 1250 crores to fund India's participation all the way till 2030. And this allows us to contribute equivalent of about 110 million euros to the construction phase. And those of you who understand the mapping from Indian currency to euros will see that 1250 crores is more than 110 million euros. And that is because the rest of the funding is meant for activities within India, so that we are ready to be using the SKA when it is built. So that is not part of direct contribution to the project. And so the biggest chunk there is for having a regional data center in India. And of course, all the costs for human resource development for various science technical activities, as well as the administrative support for the entire SKA program in India. So this is jointly funded by two ministries, the Department of Atomic Energy and the Department of Science and Technology, under which most of the research institutes fall under one or the other of these ministries. And the DAE, which is parent ministry for us, is the nodal ministry for this project. And NCRA is the nodal institution for coordinating SK-related activities in India. And finally, when this approval came through, the process for signing the treaty was initiated, and that was completed in July 2024, when we were admitted into the SK Council as full members. And we had a small celebration later in the year to mark that event, when the SK Director General Phil Diamond had come over, and representatives from both ministries were present. And so that was a nice occasion to formally announce this. So now we can talk about what we have been doing. Before I go there, just want to mention that a lot of the SK India activities are coordinated by the SK India Consortium, which we set up in 2015 when we joined the previous entity, the SK organization, in anticipation of a growing need to bring together the entire Indian community and coordinate their efforts towards SKA. So the SKIC coordinates all the SK-related activities in the country, having two main branches, scientific and technical, and the science subcommittee coordinates all actions of the Indian community towards the science. And we have science working groups, which are analogous to the global science working groups of the SKA, and the technical aspects are then coordinated differently. And there are today now 24 institutions across the country that are members of this consortium. And so, as I mentioned earlier, that we had the lead role in the design of this work package, and we continue to be one of the major contributors during the construction phase. And Yogesh Vadadekar from NCRA is the lead coordinator for this activity. We have 3 full teams from industry which are participating in the OMC train. So these activities of software, which I'll show you, maybe I should show you that first. So the scope of software in SKO is quite vast. There are 3 main chunks to it. One is what I've already told you about, full end-to-end observatory management and control system. And then there is the real-time signal processing in the central signal processor, which requires software/firmware to be developed for processing. And then there is the science data processor, which is mostly software running either on CPUs or GPUs, as the case may be. And so this makes up a big chunk of the effort that is required to make the observatory really functional. And as I mentioned, we have an active presence in the OMC work package with the 3 teams from industry participating. And this is something that is now peaking and will run at full strength till about 2026 or 27, after which it's expected to taper down as most of the control software is released. In the science data processor, we've become recently active. So, okay, this slide is a bit out of date. Ruth, I will tell you that we have been there for, and Abhirup, both are here. We've been there for a year now, and the team from India is doing quite well, and is now tasked with developing a good chunk of the end-to-end pipeline for the image processing. And this again has a significant number of experienced people from industry that are working with the radio astronomy experts. We also have some participation in the pulsar data processing pipeline. And there is a possibility that by later this year, we may have one more team in the science data processing, as the SKO is quite keen to have that additional contribution from India. And as I mentioned earlier, we have been participating in the station signal processing for SKA low, and about 40% of the hardware, the boards that will go into this are to come from India, the rest from Italy. And this is now in the process where we've concluded the expression of interest, selected industry partners to whom a limited tender will be floated within the next couple of months or so. And we are hoping that, sorry, this should be 2025, not 2024. We're hoping that the work will start by the end of this year. And in parallel, we are also looking for enhanced role in the firmware that will go on to these, on the FPGAs, which will be on these boards for doing the signal processing. And there's already some amount of work that teams both at GMRT and at RI have been doing. And so, again, just to show you an overview of that, this is the signal processing that is involved as the data from the dipoles flows through, and the beams are formed, and then they go, and there can be multiple beams that are going out simultaneously for correlation and time domain processing. Right, and then after that, we are also right now exploring additional areas of participation, because the 110 million euros worth of contribution actually allows for additional work packages that we can participate. We are keenly interested in these two work packages, which is the band 5 feed and receiver, and the digitizer for SKA mid, which is currently open as a bid by the SKO, international bid. And there's an Indian industry consortium which has bid for these work packages, and we are expecting the final decision to come by end of this month or next month. And just again, to give you a sense of what this is, these are the different bands planned for SKA mid, of which what is initially going to go forward is the band 1 and the band 5A and B, which is the ones that we are talking about here. This is the frequency range that band 5 will cover. And these are, of course, all cryogenically cooled receivers. And so the design has to take care of all those aspects. Right, and as I mentioned that we are going to have a regional data center in India, and this is again coordinated by Yogesh Varadekar. We have a small prototype hardware which has been procured and set up at NCRA, and we are in the process of opening this up to the Indian community for different kinds of use. And there is a policy framework that has just been agreed upon, and initial calls for interest have been issued, and we've received a good number of responses for wanting to use this. And so we are hoping within the next few months, this will become active, and the community members will start using it. We are also participating in the international forum, which has been set up by the SKO, with contributions coming from different member countries to work out the detailed design and way all the regional centers will work, and how they will coordinate, and how they will connect to the SKO. So there is a international collaboration that's happening, and we have a team from India, again, led by industry partners and coordinated by Yogesh, who are contributing to the design and development and framework definition for the international SRCs. And again, this is the diagram that I already showed you about what the idea is. And then we have been ramping up science activities. And in some sense, a workshop like this is part of that effort to grow the science activity. So the Indian science case has been put forward first time around 2016, just around the time when we had the international science meeting in India. And it has been revised over the years with the latest revision already now a couple of years old. But this has given the opportunity for members of the community to think actively about what the SKA will be and project what Indian astronomers can do, would like to do in that. And as I mentioned, we have the Indian Science Working Groups, which work to engage all the community members and formulate the plans. And so this is all going on, and we intend to increase the number of participants. So this was a result of a recent call we had to add membership to the science working groups. And this has produced a very good response, over 150, sorry, not much more than that. You have individual memberships in different groups, working groups going over 100, so well over 250 responses, and the different working groups have now been reconstituted with the different people chairing them for now. And we're trying to get the SKA Global Science Meeting to come to India maybe 2027. And also there have been active participation in the SKA data challenges. And there is, all this adds to the drive for human resource development in different areas. And in that context, there is a new initiative that the SK India Consortium has taken up with these institutions all working together to start a training program for undergraduate students, which will be launched in July this year in the first edition of the SK India Summer Training School aimed at undergraduate students primarily. Okay, so all of that, like I said, is this part of increasing the human resource capacity to contribute to SK-related activities. And so this is just a summary of things that I've already talked about. So I will stop here, and if there is time for questions, then we can do that.
Thanks. This is really great to see this overview of all the activities in India. Just, I should probably know this. So if SPS is still to be built, what is processing the station data at the moment?
Oh, so there is a prototype of that hardware, which is available. And that is sufficient to take care of this. And the Italian tier 1 is rolling out that hardware. It's just that in India, we haven't started yet. And so the plan is that Indian contribution will kick in a bit later on, but there is already enough hardware on the ground from the prototype boards to do the processing for the existing stations. And pretty soon the Italian contribution will start coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thanks for the talk. So my question is that in the SK documentation, sensitivity estimates have been given for bands higher than 15 gigahertz, between 15 and 50 gigahertz. So I understand that it is not a part of the initial deployment plan. So what is the update on it? Are they planning to include those frequencies as well?
So what SK phase 2 will look like is not known right now. Right now, the full focus is to get the SK phase 1 work rolling. And once one starts seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, there will be work starting in parallel for defining the next phase, which may also include technology refreshes for the SK phase 1, as well as plans for SK phase 2. So right now, I don't think there is an answer available to your question.
Thanks, Yashwant. My question is, when the SKA comes online and becomes operational in a few years, what's the unique area of relevance, for example, for the GMRT from a scientific and technological viewpoint?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and those are things that we fold into our planning also as we think about what we should be doing. But I think it can be said that even when SKA is online, not everything that can be done will be done by the SKA. So there will be niche areas for different large facilities around the world to still contribute. There will be also follow-up of certain kinds stemming from the SKA, which may be possible. The third thing is that many of the larger facilities are looking at a program which is a VLBI with the SKA as a significant driver for, and so in that context, a location at our longitude where the GMRT is located is an ideal location to give long baselines to both SKA low and SKA mid. And so we already have frequency coverage in GMRT, which overlaps with both. And we're also trying to now get some additional antennas at the GMRT, which go to higher frequencies in order to provide a complementary capability. So all of that is there. And I think it's a question that every radio astronomy group is asking. And I think there is scope for coexisting with the SKA.
Take one last question, and if the next speaker could come down, please.
Yashwant, so this is regarding the regional data center, the prototype. So you said that the UI has been, sent out, and so say, for example, if I miss that, is there any way to?
Yeah, so there was a discussion that call that went out, there were some queries that maybe not everybody got it. And so I think we'll put out another call before the committee looks at all responses and ranks them and recommends what usage should be allotted time on the cluster.
Thanks.
There's obviously lots of questions, so maybe people can ask during the coffee. So if we can thank the speaker one last time.